I'd like to get us started with you, Dr. Slow. I want to ask you to walk us through what's happened today. Where did this dialogue begin, and what were citizens asked to do?
The dialogue, in effect, began a few weeks ago when about 4,400 citizens all over the world received a briefing packet about 30 pages long that summarizes the views of the world scientific community on climate change and climate change politics. And the deliberative process began about 33 hours ago in Australia, starting from the international dateline and moving gradually west. And in each of the 38 nations, groups of citizens gathered, 100 per room. They were chosen to be representative of the diversity of their respective countries or nations, and experts or people active in stakeholder groups working on climate change were excluded from the room because we already know what the experts and the stakeholders think, and this was a chance to hear from the rest of the world's citizens. And having read that background briefing paper in each respective country as the process gradually circled the globe, starting in Australia, then going to Japan, then to Taipei, then to China, then to Bangladesh, India, then over to Europe and Africa, and finally to the Americas. In each case, the citizens spent an entire day deliberating among themselves about the very same questions that will be negotiated at the Copenhagen UN Summit in December, and voting on recommendations to the delegates to the UN Summit, and then making their own action recommendations to those delegates.
Wonderful. Now, Dr. Snyder, you've had a chance to look at some of the results of this day of consultations. I'm wondering, what has struck you about these results in general terms?
Well, it seemed I haven't seen all the ones in there, just the ones that were on the online part that I was looking at. But the thing that was most striking is, at least in the United States, I have to deal with one or two press calls or congressional staff about how these people who continue to deny that there's a climate problem are always trying to argue that we're wasting our money and doing the wrong thing. I saw none of that. I saw people who seriously understand that we have a problem, and the way to deal with it is to get going on figuring out what is the fair and effective set of steps, not playing the denial game in order to protect the status quo. So that, of course, struck me immediately. Once we get to that point, people do have different views about how to get there most effectively, and that's, of course, legitimate in a problem that's complex.
And we'll have a chance to dig in and delve deeper into those results. Dr. Winter, what's your impression overall on what you've seen today?
Well, I saw the meeting in Boston, and it was a far better example of citizen engagement than the congressional town hall meetings on healthcare in the United States that I attended this summer. I think there was far better focus, a kind of very lively and constructive engagement, and that seemed to be reflected in the results from the other groups all around the world. One impression that I have is that the worldwide views model of public deliberation and public thought is a very good one, and should be used in a wide variety of issues that concern the global community of nations in the years ahead. And I think that the results show very strong areas of consensus that we could perhaps talk about, a very strong sense of urgency and commitment, and implicit messages or maybe explicit messages about what national politicians in the United States and elsewhere around the world ought to be doing in listening to citizen voices and taking action. Those are my main impressions, general impressions.